Historic England is an arm's length body. We are sponsored by the Department of Culture, Media and Sport. Our role essentially is to provide government with specialist advice on matters relating to the protection of the historic environment in England. We also have a role in terms of the UK's duties in relation to World Heritage sites in particular. We're about 1,000, we employ about 1,000 people in regional offices across the country: Manchester, Birmingham, Bristol, Newcastle, York, Cambridge, London, Swindon and Portsmouth. We provide technical advice both to government but also to those who are responsible for managing and looking after our historic assets. Part of the reason we've still got a fantastic subset of cultural assets in this country, we have one of the kind of oldest historic building stocks in the developed world, is because we've looked after them, but we've also ensured that they can continue to evolve and adapt to modern requirements. So part of our job, and a key part of our job, is to ensure that that change is managed sensitively so that they can continue to be really desirable places to live and work, but that they're also retaining what makes them really special and draws people both to this country internationally, but also draws businesses to invest in our historic cities and towns. So we have quite an extensive programme regarding retrofit, because we do recognise and actually firmly believe that actually improving our existing historic buildings, whether they're residential or commercial or recreational, that they are energy efficient, they contribute to the net zero goals of this country, but more importantly than that they can continue to be desirable places to live and work. So we've got a whole suite of programmes involved in that regard. A key objective for us is to demystify and buff the myth that retrofitting our existing historic buildings is difficult or indeed very challenging. It's not. I mean, it needs to be done. It has to be done. It can be done sensitively. There is no historic building that cannot have its energy efficiency improved. It's just making sure it's done in the right way. So one of our key messages is not if it's done, it's how it's done. And so what we're doing is through a range of different programs, we're producing guidance to show how retrofit can be done sensitively, how it can be done well. We are carrying out research to show how, for example, the installation of a heat pump in historic properties can be a very effective way of heating a building. So that, again, demystifying and busting the myth that retrofitting historic buildings through the use of heat pumps isn't an option. It definitely is an option. Heat pumps work in most buildings. Likewise, treatment of windows, insulation, and of course solar panels, one of the more kind of controversial issues. We found ways of ensuring that we can put solar panels on most of our historic buildings. And we've seen them recently go up in York Minster. We've seen them on other cathedrals around the country. If we can do them on cathedrals, we can do them on any property. So the challenges can be multiple. So there's obviously a funding challenge. It's not always that cheap to retrofit, particularly some of our most complex and sensitive historic assets. But it's also understanding what works in what situation, and making sure we get the right skills to both specify what retrofit measures will be required, and then make sure they're installed properly, and then critically, which everybody tends to forget, to make sure they're used properly. So making sure that we deal with the skills required for installing, for specifying, and for using is really, really important. If we can address those challenges, we can start to introduce new products, explore different ways in which new energy efficiency improvements can be brought through, and by demonstrating through exemplar projects, which is what we're trying to do at the moment, we can hopefully encourage more people to take up this technology to adapt the buildings, both at home and ultimately abroad as well. We do actually think it's quite important to set out minimum energy efficiency standards. We're supportive of the concept, and we think that should be brought forward in legislation. But it's really important that what you're measuring is actually the true performance of a building. And we think things like the standard assessment protocol, for example, at the moment, still needs further work to be able to understand properly how buildings perform, and what, therefore, the right requirements, the right interventions would be to improve the performance of that particular building. So one way to look at it is energy use, but another way to look at it is the whole carbon use as that building in particular, buildings in particular. So what we're trying to do, and working very closely with our partners in government, with DESNES, but also with industry, is to make sure that we've got better metrics, better understand how buildings perform, and therefore what the right interventions are. And through that approach, we hope eventually that we can apply minimum energy efficiency standards to all of our historic building stock. But the thing that we fear the most for all of our heritage is obsolescence. So that's why we want to make sure that all of our historic buildings can be brought back into effective, productive use, that they can be energy efficient, that they can perform, they can provide a really exciting and a comfortable environment for their users, for their occupiers. So that's why this is so important to us. We do not want to reach a position where our historic buildings become too difficult to treat and therefore become obsolete and therefore stranded assets. So how do we make sure that they can continue to adapt? And that is really what's behind all of the work that we're doing at the moment, is to ensure that we're showing, we're demonstrating how this work can be done, how it is possible to bring these buildings up to modern energy efficiency standards. And that is something that we're committed to. We will continue to do so going forward. And the reason why this is also important for the broader regions of the country is that we know, for example, there's a minimum of 670,000 new homes that can be converted, that can be provided from just the conversion of our existing vacant historic buildings. And those are historic buildings that are 100 years old. So actually finding ways to retrofit, bring back into use much of our existing vacant historic building stock will actually produce answers to some of the biggest challenges that the country faces, particularly around housing. So we've done quite a lot of consumer research around this, polling with the public to find out what are the barriers. Why aren't they retrofitting, improving the energy efficiency of their existing buildings? And frankly, the answer is multiple, but it's partly because they just don't know. They don't know how to do it. They're confused by what products are available, who to turn to for advice, who are the installers. So what we're trying to do through a lot of our work at the moment is to actually show through examples of how actually quite straightforward it is to make a really kind of basic improvements to existing ordinary buildings such as Victorian terraces, installing heat pumps, putting in solar panels, improving windows, improving doors, all of those things that make a home much more comfortable, much more energy efficient, reducing bills. So we've got a project going on at the moment where we're providing a video record of the installation, a full retrofit of a Victorian terrace house in Walthamstow in London. We're making the results of that available on through our web pages, just to show actually this is really quite straightforward if you know what you're doing and you can bring examples from other people. Other ways we're doing it is running webinars, producing guidance, providing a lot of literature targeted at the ordinary occupier of our historic homes to try and help demystify the process for them and allow them to feel more confident about making what are quite significant investment decisions for them. But actually, investment decisions in the long run will prove to be very good value for money.